Not every love is truly love. Sometimes it is only a mirror, reflecting the part of your soul you never dared to face. That person walked into your life carrying light, a smile, and words that made your heart tremble. And for a moment, you believed you had finally found what had been missing all along. But what you did not know was that you never loved them. You loved the feeling of seeing yourself through their eyes, the feeling of being seen, being chosen, being enough. When they disappeared, what hurt was not losing them, but losing the image of yourself in their gaze. You say you want to forget. You want to let go. Yet every morning your mind returns to memories, as if your memory has its own soul, drawn back to where it was once wounded. You scroll through old pictures, replay old songs, reread old messages, telling yourself it is just one last time. But that one last time becomes a ritual, an unconscious prayer to be seen again, even if only in memory. Each time your phone vibrates, your heart tightens, and for a fleeting second, you hope it is them. Even though you know that even if that message came, it could not save you from yourself. The truth is, you do not miss that person. You miss the illusion you painted of them. You miss the dream where you were not alone. You miss yourself, the version who believed love could heal every wound. But love, when driven by fear, is no longer love. It becomes an emotional chain binding you between hope and disappointment. The pain does not come from the one who left, but from what has never been healed within you. Carl Jung once said, "What we do not face within ourselves will become our destiny." And perhaps the person you thought was the love of your life was only destiny's way of forcing you to look at what you had forgotten. We call it karma, but in truth, it is the unconscious finding its way to the light. Every person we meet plays a mysterious role. The lover, the betrayer, the savior, all mirrors of the parts of our soul we have yet to integrate. And when that love shatters, the mirror breaks, revealing countless fragments of yourself scattered everywhere. Many fear this truth because it demands that we take responsibility for our own pain. It is easier to say, "They hurt me." But if you look deeper, you will see they only touched a wound that had long existed. Perhaps it is the childhood fear of being abandoned, the feeling of never being good enough, the longing to be seen. When they leave, they only peel away the bandage covering those wounds, and you think you are hurting because of them, when in fact, you are hurting because of yourself. Because for so many years, you buried your true soul just to be loved. Love that begins from emptiness will always find the wrong reflection, not because you are foolish, but because your mind is seeking healing in the wrong place. You love like a wanderer in the desert, searching for an oasis, seeing a distant tree and believing it to be water. But when you come close, you touch only a mirage, and then you feel disappointment. You blame the other. You call it cruel fate. But if you look deeper, you will realize the mirage never betrayed you. It only reminded you that you are thirsty. There is a truth few dare to accept, that sometimes we do not truly want to heal, because healing requires us to let go of the role of the victim, and that role gives us a reason to be pitied, to avoid change. So we cling to pain, nurture it like a keepsake, and call it unfinished love. But if you listen closely, you will hear that pain is not only loss, it is an invitation to begin the journey of finding yourself again. When Jung studied the human psyche, he discovered that every relationship is a stage for the unconscious. We do not meet others only to love, but to reflect. The person you love often triggers the parts of you that you have not accepted, the soft, the dependent, the part that longs to be saved. That love, therefore, is not wrong. It is necessary, because through it, you can see what needs healing. But the problem begins when you cling to that reflection and call it destiny, for then you lose the chance to return to your true self. Think back. When you first fell in love, everything felt beautiful, as if your soul had finally found home. That person seemed to understand you, to listen in a language beyond words. But slowly, something changed. The tenderness turned into silence, the closeness into distance, and you began to panic. Not because they changed, but because the wall of illusion you built was crumbling. Every pain in love is the sound of that illusion breaking. And when the wall falls, what remains is the raw truth, the loneliness you tried to hide behind someone else's love. You might ask, if everything is just reflection, does true love exist? Yes, it does. But true love does not come to fill a void. It comes to expand the light. It does not arise from fear of loss, but from inner wholeness. When you no longer need anyone to prove your worth, only then can you love without attachment. But to reach that place, you must dare to face the emptiness within you, the one you have mistaken for love. If you are hearing these words and feel a trembling in your heart, do not turn away. The discomfort you feel is not wrong. It is the sign that your soul is responding. Each time we touch the truth, the ego resists, fearing to be stripped away. But only when you move through that shell can you see what lies beyond, the freedom you have long searched for in someone else's eyes. This journey is not easy, for it begins by accepting that the one who hurt you is not your enemy, but your guide, leading you back to yourself. They were only the messenger, while the destination is your own heart. Every tear that falls is not in vain. It washes away the illusion, so that the truth can appear. When the first light of awareness shines in, you suddenly realize you have never truly lost anyone. What was lost was only a reflection, and what remains is you, raw and whole, standing before the mirror, learning to love yourself. And that is where every spiritual journey begins. There comes a moment when you realize the pain you feel for someone is not just about loss, but about something deeper moving within you. A door opens, and you begin to see that what we call love is actually a mirror of the unconscious. Carl Jung once said that we do not truly see others as they are, but as we are. Every gesture, every glance, every way they hurt us is the language of the soul speaking to us about what we have not yet accepted within ourselves. The person we love becomes a living mirror reflecting the forgotten fragments of our soul. When you meet someone who makes your heart tremble deeply, it is not only attraction, it is the energy of the unconscious rising. You see something familiar in them, not because they resemble someone you once knew, but because they touch the part of you that you have lost. For Jung, this is the concept of anima and animus, the archetypal images of the feminine and masculine energies within every person. When we love, we often love someone who carries the energy we are missing. A man seeks a woman with the gentleness he does not dare to show. A woman seeks a man with the strength she believes she lacks. In that meeting, both believe they have found their other half. But in truth, they are only facing the unconscious part of themselves projected outward. Then the inevitable happens. When the illusion fades, when the other person no longer fits the role we cast them in, love begins to crack. We no longer see the perfection we once saw. They become different, distant, cold. And at that moment, the soul begins to rebel. We call it disappointment, betrayal. But in truth, it is the collapse of the projection. The other person never truly changed. We are just seeing them more clearly, without the lens of desire. And in that moment, we face two choices: to run, to blame, and to seek a new projection, or to stay, to look into the fracture, and ask, why does this hurt so much? That question is not easy. It demands the courage of someone willing to see themselves under the raw light of truth. Because the answer always leads in one direction, inward. When you fear abandonment, it may be the forgotten child within you crying out. When you feel not enough, it may be the echo of an old memory, the memory of trying so hard to be loved. The other person only touched that wound, but the real pain lies within you. Love in this sense is not romance, but the most demanding form of spiritual therapy, where every crack becomes an opportunity to see what is real. Jung called such moments the confrontation with the unconscious. It is when the shadow within us, the denied emotions and repressed needs, begins to surface. When we love someone so much that we lose ourselves, it is a sign that we are searching outside for what should be found within. We give others the power to define our worth, and when they leave, we fall into emptiness. But that emptiness, if we have the courage not to escape it, becomes the doorway back to our essence. Imagine there is a locked room inside you. In it lie parts of your soul you have imprisoned: fear, anger, desire, vulnerability. When you love, the other person becomes the key that opens that door. They awaken those parts, bringing emotions you once hid to the surface. So when they leave, you do not just lose a person, you lose the key that brought those parts to life. And you panic, not knowing how to keep that feeling alive. But what you fear losing is not the person. It is the connection to your own soul that they helped awaken. When you realize this, you begin to understand that love does not come to complete you, but to dissolve the illusion of completeness. It does not come to bring you comfort, but to make you grow. because only when you face illusion can you touch what is real. Jung once said that love is the act of a soul daring to look in the mirror and take responsibility for its reflection. The other person is only the mirror. Whether you choose to look or not is up to you. And perhaps that is why the most painful loves are the most important ones. Because they not only teach us how to love, but how to awaken. When everything falls apart, you are forced to ask, who am I without them? This question is not meant to be answered with logic, but to open the door to truth, that you were never a half needing another to be whole. You only forgot that you have always been enough, but that forgetting is not a mistake. It is part of the journey. No one reaches freedom without first getting lost. The heartbreaks and unfinished loves are silent rituals of the soul, moments of dying and being reborn. The person you once loved may leave, but the message they brought remains. Look back at yourself. And if you are brave enough to listen, you will see that pain is no longer the enemy, but the teacher. Pause for a moment. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Remember the one who hurt you most. Do not run from that image. Let it appear clearly. Now ask yourself, do I truly miss them? Or do I miss the feeling of being seen through them? Be honest, because the answer will lead you in the right direction. If you realize that what you miss is the feeling of being enough, then that is the message. You have given the most sacred part of yourself for someone else to hold. It is time to take it back, not by finding someone new, but by turning inward and speaking with your soul. Begin by understanding that true love does not come from being loved in return, but from daring to love yourself enough that you no longer need to be saved. Then, others are no longer destiny, but companions. And if they leave, you remain whole. At its deepest level, love is not the story of two people, but the journey of one soul traveling through the face of another to find itself. Every relationship, whether brief or painful, is a footprint of God on the sand of your soul. Nothing is meaningless. No one is truly wrong. Every heartbreak is a lesson in expansion. And when you understand this, you no longer ask, why did they do this to me? But instead, what have I learned about myself through them? That is the beginning of freedom. Not freedom from others, but freedom from illusion. And when you see through it, when the mirror of the unconscious becomes clear, you will realize that everything you ever searched for in someone else's eyes has always been within you, waiting for you to return and see it. We grow up believing that to be loved, we must be worthy of love. That only when we are good, kind, gentle, useful, or perfect will others stay. No one teaches us that true love does not come from perfection, but from genuine presence. So from a very young age, we learn to hide our fears, suppress our emotions, and wear masks to fit into the world. Jung called this the persona, the social self, the role we create to survive under the eyes of others. At first, it is only a shield, but over time, we forget that behind that mask, a soul is still waiting to breathe. In relationships, the persona is at its strongest. We choose our words carefully to avoid being misunderstood. Choose silence to avoid seeming weak. Choose smiles to hide the storms inside. Each time we do, we drift a little farther from ourselves. Then one day, we look in the mirror and see a stranger, tired, empty, and distant. Love no longer feels like a space to be real, but a stage where we keep performing the role of the one who deserves love. And the irony is, the harder we try to be loved, the more we lose true love. We keep adjusting ourselves to fit inside someone else's heart, forgetting that our own heart needs space to exist too. We shrink, we hold back, afraid that if we show too much, they will leave. But in that silence, our soul begins to die. When you have to hide what is true to keep someone near, you are no longer loving. You are betraying yourself. And that quiet betrayal leaves the deepest wound of all, the feeling that you are not enough. Jung once said, "What we deny will rule us from the shadows." When we reject our true self, the persona becomes the ruler. It makes us live by standards, expectations, and the opinions of others. But the persona cannot love. It can only please. It cannot connect. It can only fear. And that is why when a relationship breaks, we do not only lose the other person, we also lose the role we poured our soul into maintaining. That is why the pain cuts so deep. We are not just parting with someone. We are parting with the version of ourselves we thought was real. Deep inside, you may have felt it before. sitting beside someone you love, yet still feeling alone. Smiling, talking, caring, but somewhere within you whispers, I am not myself anymore. That is the moment the soul begins to stir. It calls you home. It tells you that love cannot save you if you have abandoned yourself, because true love can only exist between two authentic beings, not between two masks. You may have asked yourself why you still feel empty even when you are loved, why you still doubt your worth even when someone tells you how wonderful you are. It is because those words cannot reach the part of you that you have hidden. They love the mask, not the soul. And that forgotten soul begins to knock through anxiety, fatigue, and the quiet loss of joy in life. You think you are losing someone else, but in truth, you are losing yourself within them. Pause for a moment. Look back and ask yourself, how many times have you said yes when your heart wanted to say no? How many times have you smiled while your heart was bleeding? How many times have you stayed silent, afraid the truth would drive someone away? Each time you did, you sent out an invisible message. I am not enough to be loved as I am. But if you can love someone for their truth, even their imperfections, why would you not deserve to be loved in the same way? Carl Jung compared life to a journey back to the center of the self. But to return, we must dare to put down the heavy masks. Imagine for a moment, if you no longer had to please anyone, if you no longer had to pretend to be strong, if you could speak honestly, cry freely, live authentically, who would you become? The answer does not need to be perfect. It only needs to be real. Because that truth is the seed of love. And perhaps now is the time for a deep breath, a pause. If these words touch your heart, do not keep them only for yourself. Share them, not to spread my story, but to remind other souls that they are not alone. Each time you leave a comment, a small sign, you are telling yourself, I have heard the call of my soul, because someone out there might need to hear what you have just felt. Let that act become a promise that you will no longer stay silent with yourself. Because healing does not begin with being loved by someone else, but with stopping the act of self-betrayal. When we stop performing, we give our soul space to breathe, allowing true love to find its way back. Not the blind love of dependence, but the clear love of two beings who know who they are. And in the moment you choose truth over comfort, honesty over approval, you realize that love is no longer a search outside, but a return within. The journey does not end here, because once the mask falls, what was hidden begins to rise. Fear, anxiety, the silent cries of the soul. But that is not failure. It is the true beginning of seeing. And sometimes, all it takes is enough courage not to turn away, to hear what your soul has been trying to say all along. I have always been here, just waiting for you to remember. Anxiety is not the enemy. It is the alarm bell of the soul, the knocking of the forgotten part within you. When a person tries to live as someone they are not, when emotions are suppressed and truth is hidden, the soul begins to react. It sends signals through the body, a racing heartbeat, a tight throat, sleepless nights without reason. We call it restlessness, crisis. But in truth, it is the soul speaking, saying, look back. You've gone too far from your own center. Many fear anxiety, seeing it as a sign of weakness. They try to silence it with work, busyness, or new relationships. But the more they suppress it, the louder it becomes. Like a child locked in a dark room, the soul screams louder the more it is ignored. Jung once said, what we do not face in consciousness will return into our lives as fate. Anxiety is the way fate knocks, forcing you to face the part of yourself that has never been truly lived. When you are afraid of losing someone, you are not afraid of losing them. You are afraid of living without your reflection in them. Because in love, you have given them the power to define who you are. When they leave, the mirror breaks. And you panic not because you are alone, but because you no longer know yourself. Every message left unanswered, every silence, every distance awakens ancient memories. The fear of being abandoned, forgotten, invisible. That is why the anxiety feels so overwhelming. It is not only a reaction to the present, but an echo of your whole life. But if you stop, take a deep breath, and instead of running away, ask, what is this fear trying to teach me? You will see it is not as frightening as it once seemed. Anxiety is the instinct of the soul when it is separated from truth. It tells you that something inside is not in harmony, that you are living far from your true self. It is the conflict between the persona and the self, between the false self accepted by society, and the true self that has been forgotten. When those two parts pull against each other, the mind cracks, the heart tightens, and anxiety becomes the only thing you can clearly feel. Perhaps you have felt it, sitting in a quiet room, your heart still racing, your thoughts spinning endlessly. You think you are losing control, but in truth, you are waking up. Anxiety only hurts when you fight it. When you stop, look at it, and accept it as part of you, it begins to soften. Anxiety does not need to be destroyed. It needs to be heard. In every trembling moment, there is a message. Stop pretending. Stop performing. It is time to live honestly. Remember, anxiety is only a sign of something larger, inner division. You have lived too long trying to please, trying to be strong, worthy, good. Each of those roles has taken a piece of you, and now the soul wants them back. It sends strong signals so you cannot ignore them. The ache in your chest does not come to destroy, but to awaken. Every tear that falls is water flowing from the deepest place, where the soul is being cleansed and prepared for return. Jung compared this state to the dark night of the soul, the time when old beliefs collapse and the light has not yet arrived. It is when a person feels lost, unsure of what is real. But in that darkness, the seeds of awareness begin to grow. When there is nothing left to cling to, you must face the shadow. And if you are brave enough not to run, you will see that within the darkness burns a quiet light, the light of your true soul. Anxiety, in the end, is not punishment, but initiation. You are being reborn, not in peace, but in fire. The fire of awareness, of truth, of being forced to face yourself. It burns away everything false, the defenses, the masks that once kept you alive. And only when the fire fades will what cannot be destroyed remain, your true essence. If you are in that storm, know this: you are not broken, you are awakening. Sit still, breathe, and instead of asking, "How can I stop feeling anxious?" ask, "What within me needs to be heard?" Maybe it is the child you left behind. Maybe it is the softness you have always denied. Or maybe it is the voice of the shadow, inviting you into a deeper journey, one where you will not only heal, but understand why you keep repeating the same pain. Because anxiety does not end here. It is the threshold to the deepest part of the unconscious, the home of the shadow, of everything we once rejected, yet still allows to rule us. If anxiety is the knock on the door, then behind that door lies your shadow self, the part of your soul you never wanted to face. And to truly be free, you must enter. You must meet what you fear most. For only by walking through darkness will you find the light. Anxiety is not the end. It is an invitation, a sacred invitation reminding you that it is time to stop seeking love outside and begin the journey within. In the deepest part of fear, you will find your true self, silent, whole, and never gone. We often believe we choose who to love, but if we look deeper, we will see that most of those choices are made by something within us, the part Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It holds everything we have rejected: anger, jealousy, selfishness, desire, weakness, the fragments of our soul we bury deep in the unconscious to be accepted by society. We hide them, thinking that is maturity, that is being good enough. But what is rejected does not disappear. It waits, quietly, for a chance to live again, usually through another person. And relationships are the stage where the shadow performs. You meet someone and feel they are different, special. You are drawn to them for no clear reason, as if an invisible force pulls you together. But after the first rush fades, things twist. They become distant, controlling, or they hurt you deeply. You ask yourself, why do I always choose people like this? The answer lies within. It is the shadow reflecting itself. You do not choose them because they fit you, but because they represent the part of you you have not dared to see. If you always fall for someone cold, perhaps it is because you have denied the coldness within yourself. If you are drawn to someone proud, maybe it is because you have suppressed your own desire to be seen. The shadow works in mysterious ways. It uses others as mirrors to show you what you lack, what you deny, and what you must integrate to become whole. That is why the most passionate loves are often the most painful, because the stronger the fire, the clearer the mirror. Every hurtful word, every burst of anger, every wave of jealousy is not just a passing emotion, but a lesson about yourself. Yet most of us do not understand that. Instead of looking into the mirror, we break it. We blame others, fate, even past lives, not realizing that destiny is written by the very parts of ourselves we refuse to face. Jung once said, "What we deny persists. What we accept transforms." That is the law of the soul. When you run from your shadow, it follows you. When you turn and face it, it dissolves into light. But facing the shadow is not easy. It requires admitting that inside you there are parts that are selfish, wounded, craving power and love like anyone else. You must let go of the image of being the good one, the victim, to see that at the deepest level, you and the other person are simply acting out a story both of you wrote from your old wounds. You may have asked yourself, why do I keep attracting the same kind of person, the same kind of pain? The answer is simple. Because the soul keeps sending you the same lesson until you learn it. New faces, same story. Because the shadow still has not been seen. Each time you say, I will never fall for someone like that again, but months later, find yourself in the same pattern, it is a sign that you are living under unconscious fate. It is not punishment. It is your soul's patience, whispering, you still have not learned. So, how do you learn? By changing the question. Instead of asking, why did they do that to me? Ask, how many times have I allowed this to happen in my life? Instead of asking, why do I always meet people who hurt me? Ask, what part of me still needs this pain to feel alive? The answers may make you uncomfortable, but that discomfort is the beginning of awareness. When you see the shadow, you take back your power. The shadow does not want perfection. It only wants recognition. When you can say, I have selfish parts, I sometimes want control, I am afraid of being abandoned, the repressed energy begins to release. You no longer need others to play out your reflection. You no longer need someone to hurt you to discover your strength, or someone to leave you to learn to stay with yourself. Then relationships stop being battles of egos and become sacred spaces where two souls who have seen themselves can meet. And if you cannot do that yet, do not blame yourself. The journey of facing the shadow is long and demanding. It does not happen in the light, but in the nights when you feel empty, lost, and unsure if love is real. It is in those dark nights that the shadow appears most clearly, not to frighten you, but to guide you home. Try something simple. Write down the name of the person who hurt you the most. Beneath their name, do not list what they did to you, but what they made you see in yourself. You might feel anger, sadness, shame, or emptiness. Let all of it flow without judgment. That is how you begin to speak with your shadow. It does not want you to win. It wants you to listen, and slowly, you will see something miraculous. The shadow does not only hold pain, it also hides light. In the part you rejected lies the strength you have been searching for. In your softness lives compassion. In your anger lies the desire to protect. When you integrate all of this, you become whole. And in that wholeness, love is no longer an addiction, but the expansion of your soul. The one who hurt you is not your enemy, but the messenger of the shadow. They came not to destroy you, but to remind you of what you forgot. When they leave, the lesson remains. Look into your own darkness, for there, light is waiting. And this is the true moment of transformation. Because once you have seen the shadow, only one step remains, the journey of rebirth. The path Jung called individuation, the union of light and dark, pain and love, the false self and the true self. A journey not for the weak, but for those who are ready to be free. There comes a moment, after all the breaking and struggling, when you begin to feel something strange. The pain no longer tastes bitter. It becomes quiet. All the resistance inside you falls still. And in that stillness, the soul whispers, now you are ready to come home. That is when the process Carl Jung called individuation, the union of the self, begins. It is not a mystical ritual, but the journey of a human being who finally stops running from themselves and dares to face everything that has been divided within. You realize that all this time, you have lived as two people in one body, one that the world approves of, strong, kind, fine, and another hidden one, fragile, angry, confused. These two selves have fought each other for years, and anxiety, pain, disappointment are only the results of that war. Individuation is the end of the war, the moment when both sit down, look at each other, and say, we are tired, Let's go home together. Unity does not come from striving for perfection, but from daring to be honest. You begin to admit, yes, I am weak sometimes. Yes, I can be selfish. Yes, I have betrayed myself just to be loved. When those words are spoken, there is no longer shame, only release. Because only when you name the darkness can it stop ruling you. Each time you are honest with yourself, a piece of your soul returns. Each time you choose silence over begging, walking away over pleading, saying no instead of enduring, you are laying the bricks for the new home of your being. Jung once said, "No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Now you understand his words. The path of healing is not about erasing darkness, but walking with it. Not about removing pain, but learning to let pain become your guide. You do not need to become someone else. You only need to return to who you truly are, the one who has always been there beneath the layers of roles and expectations. One morning you wake and notice your breath feels different. Your heartbeat is the same. The world is the same. But something inside has changed. The fear of losing someone no longer has power over you. You begin to feel peace, even within emptiness. Maybe they still have not come back, but strangely, you no longer need them to feel that you exist. Because now, you are present within yourself. You have sat down beside the soul you once abandoned. As the union unfolds, you begin to feel the strength of the self, the sacred center of the soul. The self does not care whether you succeed or fail, are loved or forgotten. It only knows you are living in your own rhythm. Everything becomes still. You no longer need to prove anything or chase anyone's shadow. You understand that happiness is not a destination, but the harmony between heart and soul in every breath. From here, love also takes a new form. It is no longer dependence or salvation. It becomes a natural flow. You love not because you need, but because you wish to share. You no longer seek someone to fill you, but someone to walk beside you. You look at another not through the lens of expectation, but through the quiet eyes of understanding. You are not me, and I am not you, but we can meet in the light of truth. And in that gaze, there is no fear of loss, only freedom. You also begin to see that forgiveness is no longer a duty, but a natural result of wholeness. Because when you understand yourself, you understand others. When you recognize your own darkness, you no longer judge theirs. The anger melts away like smoke after fire. Forgiveness does not erase the past. It restores the soul's energy. You understand they hurt you because they could not yet see themselves, just as you once could not see yourself. And so, in one breath, resentment fades. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to understand. Step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment, you return to your center. And in that center, something miraculous happens. The old pain becomes a prayer. You feel gratitude for what once broke you, because without it, you would never have come this far. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Now you know it is not philosophy, but the truth of the heart. Remember, union is not an ending. It is a way of living. You will still feel anger, fear, and old wounds rising from time to time. But now, you no longer fight them. You greet them like old friends, smile, and say, "I see you. Thank you for reminding me that I am still human." And in those moments, you feel a peace unlike any before. The peace that comes from no longer needing to be perfect, only to be real. When you reach this point, you are no longer driven by the past or defined by your wounds. You walk lighter, clearer. Every choice, every glance, every word comes from one place only, the soul that has become whole. And right there, you realize the light is no longer waiting at the end of the road. It is shining in every step you take. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is when you are awake enough to look back at everything that has happened and understand that the one who hurt you no longer holds the power to define who you are. It is not denial, and it is not escape, but full acceptance. Everything has happened, and I choose peace. Carl Jung once said that a person cannot change what they do not accept. So letting go is not throwing away the past, but learning to see it with new eyes, the eyes of an awakened soul. You begin to understand that no one ever truly betrayed you. They were only living from the level of awareness they had at that moment. Like you, they also carried shadows and fear. They hurt, because they did not yet know how to love. And sometimes you stayed too long because you did not yet know how to leave. There is no villain and there is no victim. Every soul is simply finding its way home. When you realize this, your heart no longer seeks revenge, no longer needs answers. Silence becomes forgiveness. Departure becomes the ritual of growth. Letting go is understanding that love never disappears. It only changes form. The love that once tied two hearts together now becomes energy that nourishes the soul. You do not need to hold on to know you once loved. You do not need a happy ending to know it mattered. Everyone who comes and goes is a teacher on your path. Some teach you desire, some teach you patience, and the ones who leave, they teach you freedom. There is a truth that only those who have truly let go can understand. When you no longer cling, you finally hold. When you no longer demand that love must stay, love becomes open space, no longer a chain, but the sky. Then you no longer need to close the old story, because it closes itself. You no longer need to erase memories, because they no longer hurt. They are simply pages you have finished reading, set back on the shelf, so you can pick up a new one with lighter hands. Letting go is not an act of logic, but a ritual of the soul. It is the moment you place your hand on your heart, feel its beat, and whisper, "Thank you. Thank you for loving. Thank you for hurting. Thank you for being brave enough to walk through it all." Because without those breaks, you would never have known your own strength and clarity. Every tear you once cried was a prayer answered. And when you look back, you see that everything had a reason, even the pain. From the moment you choose forgiveness, not only for them but for yourself, life opens a new chapter. You begin to walk forward, not with a closed heart, but with one that knows its worth. You no longer seek love to fill you, but to share it. You no longer need someone to see you, because you see yourself. You no longer need to prove anything, because you know you have always been enough. And then one afternoon, you might hear again a song that once made you cry. But this time, instead of pain, you smile. Because now, memory is no longer a wound. It is a keepsake. The one who once broke you is now only a footprint on the path of your becoming. They no longer have power over you because they have completed their role. Their soul touched yours only to deliver one message: come back to yourself. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And perhaps, after all, that is the deepest meaning of love. Not to find someone, but through someone, to find yourself. Love never leaves you. It only changes direction from another's eyes back to the light within your own heart. And when you touch that light, you realize you were never lacking, never alone, never without. You are only learning to remember what your soul has always known, that you are love itself. Now, take a slow minute. Close your eyes. Think of what you still have not been able to let go. Take a deep breath, and in your heart say, "I thank you, and I release." That is not an ending, but a beginning. A beginning of a new life, where you are no longer the one searching for love, but the one carrying love wherever you go. And if these words touch you, leave a note below of what you wish to release, as a small ritual, as your soul's way of telling the universe, "I am ready to be free." Because letting go is not losing. It is returning to peace, to light, to the wholeness of your soul. And in that moment, you will understand every goodbye has only ever been a doorway back to yourself. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.